Okay. Hi there. How are you? Good morning or good afternoon. My name is Associate Professor Andrew Keating. I'm just going to talk to you for just a few minutes just about the CEMS UCD MSc in International Management. So essentially, I'll tell you why it's great, just a little bit about the curriculum and the activities, and then just about the entry requirements, and then a very brief conclusion. And then if you have any questions, we'll take them at the end if that's okay. Okay, so just about CEMS itself. The CEMS program in UCD is essentially a 14 to 15 month full-time program. CEMS is a global alliance that focuses in on the MSc in International Management, and it's made up of, at the moment, 33 leading business schools across 5 continents. And then we have another one joining in 2022. So some of those schools include places like HEC in Paris, St. Gallen in Switzerland, London School of Economics in obviously London. We have the National University of Singapore, Tsinghua in Beijing, HKUST, Cornell in Ithaca in the United States, in New York State, and schools of that sort of caliber essentially all around the world. At any one time in CEMS, there's about 1,200 students studying a CEMS MIM program around the globe. It also likes to be integrated in with industry. So we also have over 70 corporate partners, as well as social partners as well, that are involved in the CEMS Alliance. And you have this massive alumni group that's spread all over the world. So we have CEMS students everywhere, essentially. Because it's across 5 different continents, there are CEMS students essentially in most major cities, and we have big kind of alumni groups around different places around the world. And we have a really big one in Dublin actually as well, because we have many CEMS students working here in different sorts of areas, but in particular in tech and in consulting. So with the CEMS program, essentially there is an exchange involved in it. And so if you do the CEMS MIM in UCD, you spend 1 semester in Dublin, you spend another semester in a partner school, and then you do an international internship at the end. So the CEMS programs tend to be very highly ranked, and the UCD standalone MIM program actually now is number 8 in the world according to the Financial Times rankings for 2020, 2021. So it's the highest ranked program in Ireland in business at the present time and moment, okay? And UCD is the only university in Ireland that's allowed to run this program because it's only one program, so one CEMS program per country, okay? Just a little bit about what it looks like. Within CEMS, you have core modules that are run in specific semesters across every single school. Now, there can be differences in the approach and how they're thought, but they all have to be thought in particular semesters. So for example, in semester 1, you have to do a block seminar. And so that's kind of a week-long focus on a particular topic that the school has a particular interest in. And it's kind of a really good way to get to know the students that you're studying with. And so, for example, in Dublin, we do one on imagining and marketing new products, and we also do one on financial statement analysis. You also then in term 1 have to do a core module on global strategy, and then you have to take a number of electives as well, okay? And then in term 2, you have to do a global leadership course, you have to do an applied business project, and as well as a global citizenship seminar, which are focused on the Sustainable Development Goals. And then another core aspect of the program that is common across all of the schools is you also have to do an international internship. And ours tends to be at the end of August of your studies, okay? And additionally, you have to do things like skill seminars. So they could be applied skill seminars, like for example, we do one with Google on sales techniques, or it could be on working in teams or in virtual teams. And there's a number of different sort of skill seminars that you kind of can do and have to do to try and finish out and make sure that you meet all the requirements of the CEMS degree. On top of that, then we have things like company visits or events. So at the moment they're virtual, as you could imagine. There's also a career forum that's held every year. Traditionally, this is held in Budapest. Again, this was virtual last year, but it's essentially where you get all the corporate partners involved. The corporate partners have internships. They're looking obviously for applicants for jobs. They also as well run skill seminars themselves. And corporate partners, just for example, would include people like Google, Facebook, McKinsey, Salesforce, Procter & Gamble, you have A.T. Kearney. So it's essentially a mix of tech companies, consulting firms, FMCG firms. Coca-Cola has just recently joined as well. It's also in banking and finance. It's, of course, a range of different sorts of areas, but particularly focused in on consultancy, tech, and FMCG. Then you also as well have CEMS clubs, which are run again across each different school, and they're run by the students on the CEMS MIM program, and they run all different types of events for the cohort that they're involved in. And then there's also international student boards that one or two students can become involved in as well. Okay. And then what about the entry requirements for CEMS? Well, typically it's a minimum of a 2-1 honors degree. And it really is a minimum because we tend to get, very high caliber students, but, 2-1's great. So 2-1 and above is fantastic. And then you have to have languages. So you have to be fluent in English, and then you have to be fluent in another language, which is certified B2 for entry, okay? And then you also need an additional language, but you don't need that for entry, you need that for exit. So you can take that when you're studying. So it can be a minimum elementary level or higher for a third language at exit. So it could be simply an A1 level, okay, if you don't have a third language. And then the process, if you make an application, is essentially you do the application, and then we screen by admissions. The admissions team will screen just to make sure that you meet the requirements of the CEMS program. And then it would be an interview by a panel for about 30 minutes. And that panel is essentially myself and another colleague who worked for a long period of time in industry and also works on the CEMS program. I would suggest that you do try and apply early because the course tends to fill fairly quickly, because CEMS is a very well known program, maybe not so much in Ireland, but it's very well known all across Europe. And so we have a lot of applications essentially from outside of Ireland, mainly coming in from Europe, coming in from places like Germany, coming in from places like Italy, like France, and from all other parts of Europe, and then other parts of the world as well. And it's a really international program. So the cohort in Ireland in the UCD program tends to be, a number of Irish students. And by Irish, I mean people who grew up in Ireland or who live in Ireland. As then we would have, essentially we would have 12 or 13 then different nationalities in that room, as well as a small number of Irish in the room as well. And we keep the program relatively small, so we look to only have about 50 students on our CEMS program, which in the grand scheme of things is a pretty small program in comparison to some of the other CEMS programs that are run in other countries. Okay, and we do that on purpose because we want to make sure that you get the right type of CEMS experience and the right sort of experience that you would have in UCD for this type of program. Okay. And so what are some of the conclusions just to draw about the CEMS program? Well, one, obviously it has a very high ranking. Rankings aren't everything and they can be quite variable, but it is a sign, and we've been in the top 10 in the world for the last 3 years. So it's a sign that it's a pretty good program and that students generally do really, really well out of the CEMS program. So I was talking to our corporate relations manager there yesterday, and they just did a survey of the CEMS students who came through from the last cohort who just graduated, and there's 100% employment from what they've seen so far, and that's not surprising. That's generally what you would see with this particular program. Another great aspect of the CEMS program is the alumni network. You have to kind of understand that you look in Dublin and it looks quite small. There's only 50 students, at any one time, but actually there's 1,200 students that are graduating with you from other parts of the world. And CEMS students tend to identify with each other. There's a very, very strong alumni network, and doing this program gives you access into this very big international network. It also tends to attract some very, very bright people, as all our master's programs do. But this one in particular, you get very, very bright people from all over the world, in particular from Europe. And again, one of the reasons for that is just because of the reputation of the CEMS MIM, in particular within the European sort of market. Okay. As well as that, you have over 70 core partners and social partners. And really what we're trying to do is to, help, because you can never cause, but to help or to prime students for international careers, and particularly for those with an aspiration for senior levels as their career progresses. Okay, so I'm going to stop talking now, and maybe we could have a little question and answer session if that would help, and maybe we can tease out, or and myself and Richard and Evelyn can help answer some of those questions for you. Okay, so that's it for me. So we have a couple.
Thanks, Andrew. Yeah, so I'll just quickly introduce myself. Richard Murphy's my name, and I'm an admissions manager. I specifically look after the CEMS program too, and we're joined as well by Evelyn Wickham, who's the CEMS program manager. So she looks after more the program management aspect. So thanks, Andrew, for that sort of really good overview. So we have about 15 minutes or maybe slightly more, and it's always good, as I think from my experience, CEMS applicants are always full of really good questions. So what I would suggest to you now is if you can just put into the Q&A box, type in your questions there. There's already some being put in. We'll get to those now. So I think if you just start putting them in there, and we'll try to get through to them. If they're a little bit specific to you and your application, we might try to answer those separately by emailing smurfit.admissions@ucd.ie. So anything too personal, just send on to us and we'll answer directly. Sure. But so try to keep them general if you can. So I've just seen Andrew, it's always a good one here. The first one, I don't know if you can see that, it says, "Hi, Dr. Keating. I would like to ask how students are allocated to partner universities." Now, it's a complicated process, so maybe we'll try to keep this to as brief an answer as we can. Will I let you go first?
Well, Paul, that answer takes about 5 or 10 minutes. And I'm not, let me put it this way, Paul. That answer would be answered for you if, when you apply and you do the interview. So essentially, it's very, very complicated answer to answer in this particular form. If that's okay, maybe I might skip past that one, because it just takes a little while to answer, to be honest with you, Richard.
It does. You're right. It is like, and we're not fobbing you off there, but it is there's a lot of criteria that we look at there. So I think it might be best if you just reach out to us personally, or certainly make an application if you haven't already. And if you're lucky enough to get through to the interview stage, Andrew does make a good part of the interview exclusively in answering this question.
Exclusively answering that one question, but it's just very.
I think maybe just one thing we can say now is that I think we do have a very good reputation of getting students into them some of their higher level preferences. But that maybe just say that much at this stage. But look, we'll move on. And Emersh has a good question in relation to the Irish language. That's actually, Andrew, that's something that was looked at.
Yeah,
it's not a recognized CEMS language, but
it does count. But you have to be able to show that you're fluent in Irish. Okay, so you can declare it as your mother tongue, but you would have to, for example, generally have studied Irish, and not just from having done the Leaving Cert. That doesn't count. It would be essentially, if you went to a Gael school and studied all your life in Irish, well, that would count. Or if you did your degree, for example, in Irish, business in Irish, and you're able to show that you have that level of fluency, yes, that would count. But
in some cases as well.
What's that?
Apologies, Andrew. Some cases as well, if you've taken modules in Irish at 3rd level as well, those can sometimes be considered as well if they're at a suitable level.
Yeah, but again, it's just having it for your Leaving Cert and getting an A in your Leaving Cert doesn't count. But fluency in Ireland in Irish does count, as long as you're able to show that you're fluent in Irish. I hope that helps, Emer.
It does. Thanks, Andrew.
Well,
Yeah, it's something we look for in admissions, and it's certainly something that we can talk to you about in more detail. You know, again, make an application, we'll go through your transcripts and we can have a look at it. But I think Andrew's point really is that at school level is generally not enough. You need to be seen at sort of high level or mother tongue. Paula says, is the application program already opened? It certainly is, and it's filling up very quickly. We're already through about 5 or 6 sessions of interviews at this stage. So if you haven't applied, you definitely want to get your application in ASAP. And that's not just a kind of like, you need to do that. This is genuinely, I would suggest, in the next few weeks, really, to be sure, because we have a lot of people already queuing up for interview. So please do get it in. I'll mention the work permit poster course. That will be, yeah, it is sort of down to your individual circumstances, those as well. So maybe we'll just pass that one by. Engineers join CEMS, generally no, it is only open or eligible to those who are coming from business backgrounds. Again, the criteria is up on the website. It's not even just a UCD criteria, it's as Andrew mentioned, it's the CEMS criteria. Andrew, yeah?
Yeah, so just the one thing, Mohit. So Shatil, obviously, it's a very good question. Again, I think that's fair by Richard. It is up to your individual circumstances. It depends where you're coming from. Can engineers join CEMS? You have to have a minimum of 60 credits of business studies within your degree. So within your undergraduate studies, you have to have a minimum of 60 credits in business related courses, okay? So at the moment anyway, unfortunately, it is focused on people who have majored in business and who have either a finance and economics background. That's kind of what it is, just because of the nature of the program.
Thanks, Andrew.
Okay.
So Marie Ness has a question here in relation to how long would it take to receive an interview if you've been successful. So that's dependent on a large amount of things, to be honest with you. At the moment, we're seeing a huge amount of applications coming through to the school across all our programs, which is obviously a great problem to have. But generally speaking, we look at a process in time to give an answer back in the initial stage of between 2 to 3 weeks. But as I say, that can and is at the moment being stretched. And it also depends on what kind of region you're coming from, because I know from certain countries, there's a global office element, which has to go through our global office, comes through to us, it takes a few more weeks, etc. So again, it's a little bit of a personal question, but generally speaking, it's about 2 or 3 weeks. And then, as Andrew already mentioned, what happens is we look at the admissions office to sort of screen your application essays and what your background is. And Andrew mentioned, is it business, or have you got enough background in business? Languages, all those things, and then we will obviously put you forward for interview if we feel that you're a good standard. And just again to reiterate what Andrew mentioned, the caliber of students who apply for this course from around the world is extremely high. But don't let that put you off, but just to be aware that if you don't get offered a place, or at that stage, or not even interview, don't think of it as a sort of, knock you back too much, because we have lots of other programs, for example, our international business program, which is something that generally speaking we might offer you instead of the CEMS. So definitely there's other options if you don't get through to even interview stage for the CEMS. And then obviously as well, generally speaking, if you get called for interview, it usually is within a few days after that you get your result of that interview. So what happens then, just to point that out real quick, as part of the whole admissions process, we would make you an offer. It could be conditional. Obviously, if you haven't finished your degree, or if there's other things that we might need you to do, such things language test, it would be conditional you submitting those documents to us. But your place, if you accept it, then is reserved in the program. So you can sort of rest easy, focus on your finals, get your desired result, whatever it might be. It would be set sort of at interview stage, and then that's you in the program for September. So it's once you get that kind of conditional offer, generally speaking, we see about, I think across the school, it's about 5% don't meet their conditions, but well, we can look at that down the line. Hope that's answered that question, right?
And the reason why, Marie, we would say to apply early is because the interviews are done on a rolling basis. And so once we fill the program's filled. So if you leave the application late, there's a chance that the program will be filled by the time we get to your application. You know what I mean? So I hope that helps. I hope that that's why I'm saying apply early. It's not just to try and hype up the program. The point is that it fills relatively quickly. And I'd particularly like to see, people coming from Irish universities, coming into the program and not leaving it so late that that we can't offer you a place because the program's already full. Okay, so that's why I'm saying to try and apply as early as possible. But it is open.
Thanks, Andrew.
Don't let Richard and myself make it sound like it's impossible to get into the program. It's not. It really isn't. Okay, you're all very smart. I'm sure you would all be great potential applicants. So I would apply, and you never know. Yeah. So definitely go for it.
And actually, just on that note, if you apply, you can apply for multiple courses. As I mentioned, you can have CEMS as preference number one, and this is what most people do, and then potentially international business or a similar program as number two, and make sure you preference them. And then what happened, generally speaking, if you don't get offered CEMS, but you still are, meeting the school criteria, we might offer you a place in international business. But look, as Andrew's making the points, don't be put off, but definitely make an application. We'll go from there. Surab here has just asked the criteria for non-European languages, and just if I'm reading that right, there's a list on the CEMS website. I think it's on our website too, actually, of accredited languages that make up the CEMS. So do have a look for it. There are obviously. Go on, Andrew. Yeah.
So essentially, all languages are pretty much accredited at this stage. Okay. So Surab, I'm assuming that you're maybe, and this is probably a generalization, maybe coming from the Indian subcontinent. So, all different types of Indian languages are actually accepted as mother tongue. The only thing is, though, if you're coming from outside, and this is also coming to Leon's question about an English language test, you need an English language test. So you probably need to have a TOEFL. It's TOEFL or IELTS, and it has to be, and now which one is which? I think TOEFL is 100, so it has to be over 100, and then IELTS over 7. Is that right, Richard?
Well done, Andrew. You got it. Yeah.
So you have to have an IELTS of 7 or a TOEFL of over 100 if you're coming from a non-English speaking background or your degree was not fully in English.
Yeah, I just about your one point on Leon's point, you don't need the English language test at the time of applying. It's just important to say you don't necessarily need it. We do ask for it, obviously, and it is a mandatory part of your criteria to coming in, particularly for CEMS. But it's not something that, for example, if you're waiting because of obviously the pandemic has closed IELTS testing and TOEFL testing centres, there has been delay in people being able to get an English language test to us. So don't let that delay you getting your application in. Get your application in first. We can go through the whole pre-screening, and then we can always make you a conditional offer based on providing an English language test over the next month or two afterwards. So I hope that answers that. Andrew, anything else there you must say?
Federica has a question. She's actually been selected. So she's actually been selected for the program, and she wants to know when she'll know about the preferred partner universities for the exchange semester. Federica, would you just email Evelyn? And we can answer that ourselves directly to you. And obviously, we're just looking at the exchanges at the moment, and that's usually, we would send that out usually in around March. Evelyn, isn't that right?
Yep, that'll be the first round.
Yeah, so the first round will be, so Federica, it'll be sometime towards the end of March when that'll come out to you. So I hope that answers it. But if you want more specifics, if you email Evelyn, she'll answer that for you. Okay. Eilish.
Thanks, Andrew.
Okay, again, this is kind of
answered that one already.
Yeah, we've kind of asked that one already. Yeah, Fergal, it is. So is it necessary to have an undergraduate degree in business economics? Yes, at the present time and moment it is. Okay, what opportunities are there for you to get involved in Dublin CEMS Club once you start the program? It's up to you. So we have generally a very active, because the students are usually very highly motivated in everything they do. So they usually have it up, but they always have it up and running by week 1. And then they put, first of all, they elect a president and a vice president, and then they put themselves into different roles, which could include corporate relations, which could include events and so on. And it's up to you to get involved. So once once you're in, it's up to you to put your name forward and become involved with it.
Yeah, the CEMS Club in Dublin are active. They usually have, a full selection of different events every single semester. So sometimes that takes, maybe one semester there might be a focus on events with alumni. They sometimes organise tech tours with other CEMS schools. They sometimes organise startup challenges with other CEMS schools as well. So there is a great sense of community, and there's, as well as that, a huge emphasis on the social side of things as well. It's a busy program, so it's fun having the the social element to look forward to as well at the end of every week.
And they're doing it virtually at the moment, and they're doing lots of stuff as
Yep.
really impressive. They're fantastic. Umberto, how much are extra curricular activities weighted in the admissions process? Well, we look, essentially Richard will look at all aspects, you know, when they're screening, but when we do the interview, yes, there's not exactly a weighting, but we also look for students who are involved outside of just work and study. So do you play leadership roles, you know, in clubs that you might be involved in? Are you involved in sports teams? So we look for rounded individuals as well. So we look for individuals that, you know, like many employers themselves would look for, what is it that you're doing? What is it that you can bring to the program? So it is an element of it, but it's, you know, we don't have a specific weighting towards it. I hope that answers it. I hope that helps.
Good question.
It's a very good question. Suania, I'm terrible at pronouncing names. Apologies. Yeah, Hindi is accepted, but the English language, you know, you might actually have to do an English language test. But again, you'll be able to, you'll be told that once we see the application, so we don't have the specifics in front of us. Okay.
Yeah, just on that, generally, if you're not coming from an English-speaking country or haven't done a degree in an English-speaking country, you will always be required for an English language test, even if you're sort of, unless you have your down as your mother tongue is English. So it's just something to be aware of. Even though you might be absolutely fluent in English, you might still have that testing element to do. I might just answer that Shay's question there as well, Andrew, if you don't mind, just in relation to final year student visits in Spanish. This is a common question we get in admissions, because obviously, you know, probably about 70–80% of our applicants are actually currently in the final year. You're waiting obviously in your final results, or you, as you say there, your first semester results to include your application. Can you afford to wait for these results if places are full or nearly full already? So look, you have to just get an application in as soon as you can. So I would suggest getting what you have into us. So generally speaking, people will be doing a 3-year or maybe 4-year degree. Submit your 2-year results, your first and second year transcripts if you're doing a 3-year, and generally your 1 to first, second, third year if you're doing your 4-year program. You should have all those already. Include the most up-to-date semesters if you can. So my question answer to you there, Shay, is just get what you have into us. We can start the ball rolling. You know, if you get the first semester back in the next sort of week or two, you can add it back into your application anyway. It's not like it's a straight away. It's a test when you submit. You know, there's a bit of a dialogue. We'll get back stuff if we need to. You know, and put you forward when or assess you fully if we feel everything we need to see. Hope that answers that question, Shay. So do definitely get it in as soon as you can. Okay. Frederica's asked sort of a second part.
Yeah, I know. So Frederica, I would suggest, if you don't mind, just because these are very specific questions to the CEMS program and just kind of the processes and mechanics, that actually you just get in contact with Evelyn and arrange a phone call with Evelyn or through email, and you know, we can answer all those questions for you. Okay.
Yeah, I just sent Frederica my
That's super. That's super. So I hope that helps, Frederica.
Andrew Baptiste she emailed me once or twice. He's got a good question here, actually, just because obviously the structure for Irish masters are a little bit different from some of those you see in the EU, where they're, or the continent, where they're 2-year programs. Do you want to have a touch on that one?
Yeah. So if you just look at the Europeans tend to be 2-year programs, which is great, and that's just the way that it is. But in Ireland, it tends to be a 1-year program. You know, it's like comparing apples and oranges. You know, it depends on what the type of outcome that you're looking for. You know, our students do very well and comparably as well, if not better, than many of the students that are coming out of the 2-year program, if career goals and career aspiration is what you're looking for. So there's a reason why we're ranked number 8 in the world, and that is because we tend to meet a lot of the career goals and career aspirations of the students that want to study in our program. And again, if I just looked at, and again, I've been, you know, I think the other CEMS programs are fantastic as well, because I deal with all the other academic directors. I'm like literally probably about once a week, quite a few of them. And so there's a commonality across much of what we do. Theirs tend to be much more focused. Ours are obviously focused on the academics, but maybe they go a little bit more into depth in the academics because it's a 2-year program. And it's also just following what they do within their own countries. And so if you're looking for a PhD afterwards, maybe that's the route to go, you know. But if it's looking at careers, you know, there's no variance, there's no difference. And also ours also have superb academics involved in the program too, because again, we're a fairly highly ranked and well-regarded school in Europe. So I hope that helps on that particular question. And also, are you able to access the Career Centre? Yes, you are. And are you encouraged to apply for jobs? Yes, you can do that as well, because there is all different, like CEMS is incredibly complicated. As you can imagine, trying to have rules that are common across 33 different schools can make it incredibly complex. So it's a bit of a nightmare going into any sort of detail about CEMS, because you just end up confusing people anyway. But yes, you can do, you can get a job, and your first 8 weeks of that job can count as your internship, as long as they meet certain criteria. And those criteria would include being at a graduate level or graduate level type position. We have a corporate, what you see here is just myself and Evelyn, and obviously Richard, who's part of the admissions. But we also have a corporate relations manager who advises on this, so advises on internships. As we also have a language manager who is also in charge, is the chairperson of languages across all STEMs now. So Yola's now actually not in charge, but she's chairperson across languages, the language committee within SEMS. And she also does an audit of all the students coming in, looking at their languages and looking at what they require for exit. So to make sure that everyone meets the standards and make sure that you all graduate on time. So I hope that helps, Baptiste. Evelyn?
Andrew, just to add something, there is a lot of support for careers and a lot of emphasis on career development during your time in the CEMS program in UCD. So we're fortunate that we have a dedicated career centre, the Smurfit Career Development Centre, on site, on campus, and you have access to that while you were a student with us, and also an additional year after that as well. So it's good. There is an awful lot of support. We incorporate that into one of our very first events as part of our CEMS orientation at the start of the year as well. A real chance to get to know the team in our Careers Development Centre and start kind of getting to know some of the resources that are available to you as well.
Great. We're just running over time a little bit, so I think we just need to wrap up in a second. There's a few last quick questions.
I'll do them very quickly. So let me do this very quickly. So Carlo, so I'll just answer these. You know, you need to be fluent in both written and also spoken as well. Okay, so that's what you need. If you got an offer, no, it doesn't work that way. Unfortunately, if you get an offer for international management without CEMS, is it possible to transfer in? No, you have to be accepted onto the CEMS program. There is no way to transfer into the program. If you did your undergraduate degree in the UK, Surab, no, absolutely, you're fine, because that's an English-speaking country. So I'm assuming that it was in the English language, so you'd be grand in that one. Okay. I didn't need a result, but I need a TOEFL test scheduled already when applying. No, you don't. That's Emin. So you don't, but yes, so TOEFL, you don't need a TOEFL date, but you should schedule one if you plan to apply. But you will need one for entry, so you could get a conditional offer, but that condition would be on having a TOEFL of over 100, isn't that right? Or an IELTS of over 7. I'm always mixing the two of them.
Right. You got it.
There we go. You think after 6 years of doing this, and then about skills such as Python, Statista, Excel. Yeah, that's great. Put them in your CV. That every additional skill that you have really helps as well. And so that would be super. And then, okay. So again, I applied a few days ago, despite my bachelor not being focused only on economics or management. So that's no problem, Antoine. But again, you have to have 60 credits worth of business-related topics. Okay, so I think that's all the questions. Look, I hope to hear from you all. I see many of you applying to the program. And listen, best of luck with the rest of your studies. And I think I have to finish up, Richard, do we?
Yeah, I think so. I think we're over time. We'll be slapped on the wrist. But listen, it was good. It was a really good presentation. Thanks, Andrew. And just the last thing from me, maybe just quickly say that if anyone's got further questions, please email them to smurfit.admissions@ucd.ie. And also don't forget to reach out to our current students you can talk to on our website. It's called Ask a Student section. It's you can see it. It's all over the website. If you can't find it, let me know. But it'd be good. There's a couple of CEMS students we have on that at the moment who are currently doing CEMS, and they can really help guide you with how the program's going for them, etc. So, Evelyn, have you anything last that you want to say as well?
No, just want to say it was great to see so many people join us. And we appreciate some of the questions were a little bit specific to maybe, your own situation. So if you have any questions you'd like a little bit more follow-up, do email me at cems@ucd.ie as well. We'll be able to help.
Great. Thanks very much, everyone.
Thank you. Thanks a lot. Bye.
Thank you, everyone.